محمد وآل محمد صلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم. تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون. لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون. إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون. وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون. وسواء عليهم أنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون. إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم. إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين. واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون. قالوا آمنت إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون. قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم مرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين. قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب عليم. قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون. وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون. وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون. أتخذ من دونه آلهة أن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغني عني شفاءتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون. إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين. إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون. قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين. وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين. إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون. يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون. ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون. وإن كل لما جميعا لدينا محضرون. وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها هبا فمنه يأكلون. وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون. سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون. وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون. والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم. والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم. لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل السابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون. وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون. وإن نشاء نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين. وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون. وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين. وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا مما رزقهم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتعزوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أهد إليكم يا بني آدم أن لا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تأكلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لتمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نعمره ننكس في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلية لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم ير الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحيي الذي ينشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون الفاتحة.
पर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सलवात। करबला से यही आ रही है सदा, करबला से यही आ रही है सदा। अल्लाह जल अल्लाह जल अल्लाह जल अल्लाह जल वारिसे करबला या महदी या महदी या महदी। करबला से यही आ रही है सदा। अल्लाह जल अल्लाह जल अल्लाह जल अल्लाह जल वारिसे करबला या महदी या महदी या महदी। لاش شبیر جو گرائے گئے، میں وہ پاتر ہوں کب سے سنبھالے ہوئے، دینی پتھروں سے تو ان کو سزا، یا مہدی یا مہدی یا مہدی، کربلا سے یہی آ رہی ہے صدا، کربلا سے یہی آ رہی ہے صدا، اللہ جل اللہ جل اللہ جل اللہ جل، وارث کربلا، یا مہدی یا مہدی یا مہدی۔ ماں کی نظریں نہ دیکھے یہی سوچ کر، سینہ اپنا چھپائے ہوئے ہیں، مگر زخم دکھلائے گا، زخم دکھلائے گا تجھ کو اکبر تیرا، یا مہدی یا مہدی یا مہدی، کربلا سے یہی آ رہی ہے صدا، کربلا سے یہی آ رہی ہے صدا، اللہ جل اللہ جل اللہ جل اللہ جل، وارث کربلا، یا مہدی یا مہدی یا مہدی۔ انتقام کے زینب کی چادر کا لے، سر سے پہلے تو اس ہاتھ کو کاٹ دے، بنت زہرا کی جس نے ردا کو چھوا، یا مہدی یا مہدی یا مہدی یا مہدی یا مہدی یا مہدی، کربلا سے یہی آ رہی ہے صدا، کربلا سے یہی آ رہی ہے صدا، اللہ جل اللہ جل اللہ جل اللہ جل، وارث کربلا، یا مہدی یا مہدی یا مہدی، صلو علی النبی۔
أفلح من صلي على محمد وآل محمد. اما فضا بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں آ رہے ہیں، اما فضا بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں آ رہے ہیں، کیسا ہے یہ چراغ دل ڈوبے جا رہے ہیں، کیا شام آ گیا ہے، اما فضا بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں آ رہے ہیں، ہونے لگی اذانیں کیسے سروں کو دھانپے، بازو بندھے ہوئے ہے خون رو رہی ہے آنکھیں، آنکھوں کے خون سے رستے خون میں نہا رہے ہیں، کیا شام آ گیا ہے اماں فضا، بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں آ رہے ہیں اماں فضا، بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں آ، سجاد کا کلیجہ صد پاش ہو رہا ہے، ایک ایک زخم ان کا اس غم میں رو رہا ہے، زینب کا نام لے کر آدھا بلا رہے ہیں، کیا شام آ گیا ہے اماں فضا، بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں آ رہے ہیں، نیزے پہ جتنے سر ہے ایک سر ہے ان میں ایسا، آنکھیں ہے بندھے اس کی اور خاک پر ہے گرتا، عباس کا یہ سر ہے تیور بتا رہے ہیں، کیا شام آ گیا ہے اماں فضا، بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں آ رہے ہیں اماں فضا، بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں آ رہے ہیں، اتنا چلے ہے پیدل کانٹوں پہ سارے قیدی، تھک جاتی چلتے چلتے چلتی اگر زمیں بھی، پیروں کے آبلے بھی آنسو بہا رہے ہیں، کیا شام آ گیا ہے اماں فضا، بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں آ رہے ہیں اماں فضا، بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں آ رہے ہیں لوگ کس طرح کے ہم سے دعا کرائے، اے قیدیو دعا دو یہ دن نہ ہم پہ آئے، لے کر دعائیں ہم سے دل بھی دکھا رہے ہیں، کیا شام آ گیا ہے اماں फिजा बता दे मुझको पत्थर क्यों आ रहे हैं। अम्मा फिजा बता दे मुझको पत्थर क्यों आ रहे हैं। माओ के गोदियों से लिपटे हुए हैं बच्चे, है हाथ रस्सियों में माओ के ऐसे झकरे, बच्चे जो गिर रहे हैं वो मरते जा रहे हैं। क्या शाम आ गया है। अम्मा फिजा बता दे मुझको पत्थर क्यों आ रहे हैं। अम्मा फिजा बता दे मुझको पत्थर क्यों आ रहे हैं। सल्लु अला मुहम्मद व आली मुहम्मद।
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Our condolences to the Imam of our time and all the mu'mineen on the occasion of the Shahadat of our 11th Imam, Imam Hassan al-Askari alayhi salam. Kindly recite the Surah Fatiha for all marhumeen. Al-Fatiha. Please note that the program for Eid al-Zahra will take place tomorrow with opening from 8 p.m. Mu'mineen are kindly requested to arrive promptly for the program. The Spring Course 2024. As Muslims living in today's time, we face a number of challenges, ideological, educational, cultural, and spiritual, to name but a few. Understanding the roots of these challenges and the fundamental solutions offered by Islam to keep ourselves on the right path is a quest that many of us hold dear. The positive struggle of holding fast onto the rope of Islam through rational understanding, pure intention, and firm dedication is a priceless endeavor, and serving such individuals in this journey is a responsibility of great honor. It is for this reason a group of students from the UK who are studying in the Hawza of the holy city of Qum have decided to organize another short but intensive course to meet some of the demands of living in today's age. This tailor-made course aims to review the pure Islamic worldview, explore the teachings and beliefs of this beautiful religion in more depth, and answer questions and doubts in a friendly and non-judgmental atmosphere. The Spring Course 2024 will run from the 24th of February to the 3rd of March 2024 for students from the UK, brothers and sisters from the UK aged between 21 and 40. For further information and to apply, visit www.theqsc.org. The Al-Qisas sisters would like to invite all sisters for an online Jamaat Salah workshop on Thursday, the 28th September 2023 at 8:15 p.m. All sisters are invited to the workshop, which will include discussion on the common fiqh rulings and mistakes in Jamaat Salat. Please send any questions you may have to Sister Sadika Damji no later than Sunday, 24th September, so these can be covered during the session. Details for Zoom login will be shared closer to time. We are delighted to be hosting Sayyid Muhammad Rizvi for the Majlis this evening. After achieving a bachelor's in science in biomedical sciences, Sayyid Muhammad Rizvi studied in both Hawza Ilmiya Qum and Hawza Ilmiya of England and graduated under Sheikh Dr. Muhammad Shumali in London. He is a certified hijama practitioner and has served for 4 years as a full-time resident alim in the Al-Zahra Center, Watford. Please can you all join me in welcoming him to the mimbar for the majlis with 3 loud salawat. Allah.
وعجل فرجهم ولعن عدوهم. الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على الأفضل الموجودات، العبد المؤيد الرسول المسدد المصطفى الأمجد والمحمود الأحمد، سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا، صاحب الوقار والسكينة المدفون بأرض المدينة أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين، آمين يا رب العالمين. فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم وهو أصدق القائلين وقوله الحق. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وقال الذي عنده علم من الكتاب أنا آتيك به قبل أن يرتد إليك طرفك، فلما رأى مستقرا عنده قال هذا من فضل ربي. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات. اللهم صل على محمد. In the love of Imam al-Askari, salawatullah wa salamu alayhi, let's have a louder salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. I know you're tired and continuously mourning 2 months and 8 days for Ahlul Bayt alayhimu salatu wa salam, but the salawat itself is a refresher of Iman. So when you recite the salawat, it is something that should refresh the Iman. As the ulama say, it is rahma, not zahma. So let us recite a louder salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. The hadith says one who is stingy, if you want to remove someone's stinginess, that person should recite even more salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Or the hadith that says if you want to kill nifaq, the treatment for nifaq is to recite continuously salawat on Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. Inshallah, I have your attention now. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I begin with, of course, condolences on the martyrdom of the 11th Imam, and lucky are those who are in Samarra, in the haram of the holy Imam, Salamullahi alayhi, the father of the 12th Imam. The topic that I want to put forward tonight, inshallah, is Imam Hassan al-Askari alayhi salatu wasalam, his miracles, especially looking at the miracle of Tay'y Ardh. Before I break that down, of course, this is a topic. It is a discussion that requires perhaps more than one night. But inshallah, in the one night or this short time that I have, I'll be inshallah as brief, to the point, and concise as I can. But inshallah, I want your attention. So inshallah, this difficult topic can become easy. Tay'y Ardh is a miracle. And I haven't seen any good translation for it, but I guess in our day and age, to explain to someone what Tay'y Ardh is, I think the best befitting word is teleporting or teleportation. To teleport from one place to another, Tay'y Ardh. But before we get into that, let us remind ourselves, when we say Imam Hassan al-Askari, or when we say Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, or when we say Imam Musa al-Kadhim, Imam, the word Imam, when we use it for the 12 Imams, is not how if we were to use that word, for example, Imam Abu Hanifa or Imam Bukhari. Imam Ja'far Sadiq is not like Imam Abu Hanifa. Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam is not like Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, for example. Imam al-Askari is not like Imam al-Bukhari, though the word is usually used there as well. When we say Imam, the text is clear, the traditions are clear. Lil-Imam alamat, Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Ridha alayhi salatu was-salam. Allahumma salli ala Uyun Akhbar al-Ridha of Shaykh al-Saduq and Al-Khisal of Shaykh Saduq. The tradition is found in both books. The Holy Imam says that Imam, when we say Imam, that Imam has signs and characteristics. Not every person who's educated in the fields of Islam, or for example in fiqh and hadith and usul and aqaid, is an Imam of that caliber. Of course, Imam also has a lower meaning, like a leader. The person who leads the Jamaat is Imamul Jama'ah. But Imam, when we say Imam, Imam Hassan al-Askari, Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq, Imam Musa al-Kadhim, what do we mean? Hear the hadith. Lil-Imam alamat. For the Imam, there are signs. This Qudama, Shaykh Saduq is amongst the classical, from the Qudama. He's Qadim, he's one of the older scholars, one of the earliest scholars. Imam Ridha alayhi salam says, look, if anyone is an Imam, he must have the following characteristics. And yakunu a'lam an-nas. He has to be the one who is the most educated, a'lam of his time. Ahkam an-nas. He has to be the one who is the most wise of his time. Atqa an-nas. He has to be the one who is the most pure and pious and righteous of his time. Asja an-nas. Askhan. He has to be the one who is the most brave of his time. He has to be the one who is the most generous of his time. And then the Holy Imam goes a step forward and he says, but that's not it. That's not all of it. He says, the Imam yara min khalfahi kama yara min bayna yadayh. Allahu Akbar. He says, the Imam will be someone who sees behind like he sees in front. The Imam, that there's a saying, I've got eyes on the back of my head. But none of us have eyes on the back of our head. Yet the hadith says the Imam sees from the back like he sees in front of him. Kama yara min bayna yaday, like he sees in between his hands, like he sees in front of him. And then he says, وَإِذَا وَقَعَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ مِنْ بَطْنِ أُمِّهِ. And when he's born, the first thing the Imam does, he does sajdah, and he recites Shahadatayn. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. He recites the kalima, he recites the testimony of the oneness of God, of the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the Imams after him. And that's why you look through traditions of Ahlul Bayt, the birth, the Babul Mawalid, when the wilada of the Imams, if you look at them, all Imams, including the Lady of Light, when she was born, the first thing they did was sajda, recited ayat, sometimes different ayat, and they all gave testimony to the oneness of God and the Messenger of Allah. That's a sign of the Imam. And then there's an important one, وَلَا يَكُونُ لَهُ ظِلٌّ. The Imam is someone who does not have a shadow. It's amongst the miracles of the Imam. In fact, the Prophet, there are many ahadith that say the same thing for the Holy Prophet. In fact, they say the same thing for the Holy Prophet first. The Prophet did not have a shadow. Remember the hadith that says whenever the Prophet would walk, there would be a cloud over his head? The traditions are numerous that the Prophet did not have a shadow. But I'll come to that. Why and how. But this is amongst the khasa'is, this is amongst the fada'il, this is amongst the merits. One of the miracles, or if you like, the signs of the Imams. Is this. The point being, the Imam is not an ordinary, normal person. And neither should he be taken lightly. The Imam is someone who is extraordinary. That's when we say Imam, that's what we mean when Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, extraordinary. And only an extraordinary is then bestowed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to perform acts which are extraordinary, miracles, mu'jazat and karamat. Everyone with me? So the Imam is not normal, he's not ordinary in the sense that he has a supernatural side to him. Now I bring you to the miracle that I want to discuss. Once we've discussed the Imams, the signs of the Imams, and they are pure, born pure. And you know we have many traditions that when a child is born, for example, the first thing you do, you give him ghusl, you wash him. When Imam Hussein alayhi salam was born, you know, they said, we want to give him ghusl. The Prophet becomes angry. And he says, do you not know this is Hussein? Do you not know the birth of Hussein? Yani indicating the birth of Hussein is something different. الَّذِينَ أَذْهَبَ اللَّهُ عَنْهُمُ الرِّجْسَ وَطَهِّرَهُمْ تَطْهِيرًا. Anyhow, so the Imam is someone who's special. He's not ordinary, he's extraordinary. He has a supernatural side to him. Doesn't have a shadow. He speaks in the cradle, like Isa alayhi salam did. He does sajda as soon as he's born. I mean, which child have you seen do a sajda? Now I'll bring you to the miracle that I want to put forward tonight. Amongst the many miracles is the miracle of Tay'y Ardh. Tay'y Ardh, before we go into it, what is Tay'y Ardh? Ulama of Kalam have defined it in different ways. I'll give you one or two definitions and then we move on. Time is short. Tay'y Ardh is transportation or teleportation of a person, insan, from A to B within the blink of an eye. Or if I may say it like this, A to B is not like 10 meters apart. A person, an insan, from a part of the planet moving to another part of the planet within the click of a finger. Tay'y Ardh. To do Tay'y of the earth. To cover a distance at a speed which is unbelievable. Or if we were to explain it in today's terminology, to cover that distance at the speed of light. Shocked? Because you all do look okay. It's good. So it gives us some time to break it down. Tay'y Ardh. So I want to explain this first before I inshallah go into it. What is it? Is it even possible? Or is it a myth? Is it something that only exists in the movies, in the cartoons? Or does the Quran endorse it? Does the hadith and the tariq and the mu'arrikheen have this given certain examples of Tay'y Ardh in the lives of A'immah? Does the Quran have any credible evidence for it? And if so, if proven, then who does it? And why? And where? And when? I think that's enough to cover. We don't have enough time, so it'll just be a statement for each, and inshallah we'll end it there. Tay'y Ardh, a group of the ulama who consider themselves amongst the philosophers and the urafa. This is the philosophical and the mystical explanation. It is based on i'dam and ijad. What does that mean? Very simple. The mystics and the philosophers, they say, look, yeah, Tay'y Ardh is true. But how do you explain it? They say, look, it's based on two things, i'dam and ijad. I'dam is the person in his present location disappears and he appears in his desired location. That is the one group of ulama who lean towards a mystical and philosophical side. They say the person who can do this, who can do it, we'll get to that after. But the one who can do it, he disappears in his present location and he appears in his desired location. Inshallah, I'm not confusing you guys. I'm not sure what the quietness means, but inshallah you're with me. That's one. To disappear and to appear. From a present location to wherever he desires. His desired location. But the ulama of ilm al-kalam, the mutakallimin, they explain it a little bit differently. They say, look, The person who reaches a level through the struggle of the nafs and the ita' of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he reaches a level where he gains a powerful soul. Pay attention to this. Where he gains such a powerful soul that now the body follows the soul doesn't follow the body. I'll say it again. The mutakallimin, they say, look, this person, through his obedience to Allah, through his ilm, through his taqwa, through his piety, through his taqarrub ila Allah, he reaches a level where he becomes the possessor of a powerful soul. That the body now conforms with the soul. The soul doesn't conform the body. Usually, I mean, you and I, wherever we go, the soul goes. Right? The soul is within the body, and wherever we want to go, the soul goes. That place may be good, it may be bad. But this person is the opposite, the ulama say. Wherever the soul goes, the body goes. Okay, recite salawat, please. Is it confusing or is it clear? So far, so it's okay. Okay, we need to break it down a bit more. So two definitions. One, it'll become clear. One, disappear and appear. Two, the person, the mutakallimin, they say, the person reaches such a high level. And to explain it further, they say the person reaches such a high level of iman and taqwa that he becomes the manifestation of the power of Allah. He becomes the madhar of the asma'ullah. Madharul ajaib wal gharaib. He becomes the one who manifests the asma of Allah, who manifests the sifat of Allah. In other words, this person who can do this, and it's becoming clear who this person is, this person who can do this is someone who begins to manifest the characteristics of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because of the proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Mazhar kibriya, mazharul ajaib wal gharaib, imamul mashariki wal magharib, asadullah al-ghalib, al-ghalib ala kulli ghalib, maulana Ali ibn Abi Talib. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala. In other words, not you and I. We won't be disappearing and reappearing anyway. Mu'jazat and karamat are khas for the anbiya and the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we said the imams, number one, you know, when you take imam as yourself, some people, they look at the imams, unfortunately even in our own groups, they look at the imam and say, look, he's just like me. This is where the problem is. When you look at the imam and you measure him to your own scale, then yes, the imam will seem like a simple person. But when you look at the imam from the lens of Allah or from the lens of the Prophet, then these things are very minute for the holy imam. Small things. Nothing big for the holy imam. What does the Quran say? Let us go to the book of Allah. The verse that I recited in the beginning of this majlis. You know the story in Surah Al-Naml, when Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, he asks his courtiers, he says, Ya ayyuhal mala'u ayyukum ya'tini bi arshiha. Oh, my courtiers, my wuzara, my people, my workers, my noblemen, who will bring me the throne of the Queen of Sheba before she gets here? Because the historians say, the Mufassirin, they write in this ayah, the Queen of Sulaiman had written the letter inviting her to Islam, the religion of Allah. She was on her way. She wanted to meet this King Solomon, who was a prophet and a king. So she's on her way. So to prove to her his nabuwa, he says, before she gets here, I'll bring her throne here. I mean, if you want to really, shake someone from their foundations. It's like, imagine you leave your home, you go to another city, you drive 4 hours, I don't know, Newcastle, or you go up north. You get there, you find your whole living room, your whole house is there. Your property, everything is there. So he says, who amongst my noblemen will bring me the throne of the queen? He's in Palestine. She's in Yemen. قال عفريت من الجن. One of the strong jinn, as you know, the Quran says that Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, he had control over the jinn. The jinn used to work under him. One of the crafty and strong jinn, he got up, he says, oh, Sulaiman, I'll bring it. أنا أتيك به قبل أن تقوم من مقامك. I'll bring it to you even before you rise. Don't forget our topic, Tay'y Ardh, teleportation. He said, I'll bring it to you before you rise. And you know how confident he was? He says, I'll bring it to you before you rise from your seat or your council. And I'm powerful over that. I have the power to do it. And then speaks another person, the verse that I recited. The one who had a little bit of knowledge of the book. قَالَ الَّذِي عِنْدَهُ عِلْمٌ مِّنَ الْكِتَابِ. He had a part of the knowledge. He didn't have the knowledge of the complete book. Pay attention to this is important. He did not have the knowledge of the complete book. He had the knowledge of, part of the knowledge of the book. He says, oh Sulaiman, this we know from Mufassirin and Mu'arrakhin. This is Asif ibn Barkhiyah, who was the vicegerent of Sulaiman, who was to be after him. He says, oh Sulaiman, I'll bring it to you before the twinkling of an eye. فَلَمَّا رَأَى. And then Sulaiman saw it. He said, I'll do it before you blink. And then when he saw it, قَالَ هَذَا مِنْ فَضْلِ. He says, this is from the grace of my Lord, مِنْ فَضْلِ رَبِّي. Within the blinking of an eye, the throne of the Queen of Sheba, Quran, there's not hadith yet, Quran. Within the blink of an eye, the Quran says he brought the throne and put it in front of Sulaiman. There you go. And you know what the Imams of Al-Muhammad, what they say? They say this Asif ibn Barkhiyah was the carrier, was the hamil, the carrier of one Ismul A'zam. We Al-Muhammad have 72 from the 73 of the Asma'ullah Al-A'zam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Making more sense now? Quran. In other words, the jinn could do it as well. He didn't do it, but he could do it. Look at Sulaiman himself. Surah Saba, verse 12. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَسُلَيْمَانَ الرِّيحِ. We gave Sulaiman control of the wind, the winds. We subdued the winds with Sulaiman. Sulaiman, how? Sulaiman used to fly on this carpet. He used to sit on the carpet and he used to take flight. And the Quran says that we gave the wind in his control. With the wind, he could turn the direction of the wind. He could use the wind to lift things. He could use the wind to lift the carpet or the throne on which he used to sit on. غَضُوُّهَا شَهْرٌ وَرَوَاهُهَا شَهْرٌ. In the morning, when he would take flight, in the morning, he would take flight. The Quran says, shahrun. The morning flight would cover a distance of a month. Again, this is Quran. The evening flight, or his travel on the wind, would cover the distance of a month. So the Quran says, every morning he would travel the distance of a month. Every evening he could travel the distance of a month. In other words, this type of transportation or Tay'y Ardh is very much possible according to the Holy Quran. Not only for the insan, for the jinn as well. Sulaiman being insan, his vicegerent being insan, the ifrit min al-jinn being a jinn. Within the blink of an eye, he disappears here and he reappears there. And then he disappears there and he reappears here. Okay, let's put the Quran aside for a minute. Let's look at the traditions. Imam Hassan al-Askari alayhi salatu was salam. Ja'far ibn Sharif al-Jurjani from Gorgan, in the Arabic Jorjan. He says, I left, Jorjan or Gorgan. Gorgan is north of Iran, touching the border of Turkmenistan. He says, I left there to go for Hajj. On the way, I stopped in Samarra to Imam al-Askari alayhi salam. He said, I stopped there. I met the holy Imam. I said, Yabna Rasulillah, I've brought you, khums. They used to bring khums from the Shias of different areas. This is khums and hadaya, and we brought you gifts from the Shia. And the Shia of Gorgan, they give you their salams, and they await you eagerly. They are mushtaq. They are, they want to do your ziyarah. The holy Imam says to him, look, go for your Hajj and go back. And you will reach back in 170 days. Pay attention to this. You'll reach back in 170 days. The day you enter your town will be a Friday, and it will be the 3rd of Rabiul Akhir. He says, go and tell them that I shall reach the same evening. Go for Hajj. The distance will take you 170 days. You'll reach there on a Friday and the 3rd of Rabiul Akhir. He says, I went for Hajj. I completed my Hajj. When I got back, I saw that it was a Friday and it was the 3rd of Rabiul Akhir. Exactly how my Mawla and Master, Imam al-Askari alayhi salam, had said to me. He says, when that became true, I gathered the people, the Shia of that town. And I said to them, look, whatever my Mawla and my Master has said so far has come true. And he promised me that today, before the evening, he will reach our town. So they said, okay, let's prepare. They all gather in the house of Ja'far ibn Sharif al-Jurjani. They pray Zuhr and Asr. They finish their salah. The Imam walks to the door. The Imam walks to the door. And he says, as I promised you, O Ja'far, that I'll come to meet the Shia of this town, he came. He says, Mawla, we just finished our Dhuhr and Asr. He says, yes, I prayed Dhuhr and Asr in Samarra. Dhuhr and Asr, Samarra, and I'm here. And the tradition is tawil, but people meet him, and his Babul Hawaij, they have hajat, and one of the first person comes forward and he says, Yabna Rasulillah, my son has been suffering from loss of eyesight. They said the first person comes up with his son, he says he's suffering from loss of eyesight. The Holy Imam puts his hand on his eyes and he recites something and restores his sight. One. Let me give you another example from Sunni and Shia sources. At the death of Salman al-Farisi al-Muhammadi, dies where? Madain, south of the present capital Baghdad. Amir al-Mu'mineen in Medina. Salman made wasiyah that my shroud, my kafan, dafan, janaza is to be done by Ali ibn Abi Talib. Ali ibn Abi Talib at night sees a dream, gets up the next day, gathers the Muslim in the masjid. He says, last night I saw the messenger of Allah. And he says, oh Ali, Salman had made wasiyah, he's left this dunya, he awaits you. He says to the people, I must go to Madain. They say, Ya Ali, we'll walk with you to the boundary of the city, to the outer skirt of Medina. Amir al-Mu'mineen in the morning after Fajr, when the sun rises in the day, they all accompany him. They walk with him until the boundary of Medina, until Ali ibn Abi Talib from there continues alone, until he disappears from in front of their eyesight. He's gone, they can't see him. They turn back, they come to Medina. An hour or two has passed. As they come to Medina and they begin to settle down, they look back, they see Ali ibn Abi Talib coming back. It's not even Zuhr yet. Not even Asr yet. It's not even half a day. Forget a day. They said, Ya Ali, why have you come back? You were set off for Madain. He says, I went to Madain. I shrouded him. I gave him the ghusl. I did the kafan, the salatul janaza, dafan, and I came back. Some people doubted it. Some people doubted Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib. Of course, not everyone was Shia. They said, we don't believe Ali ibn Abi Talib. But then tradition reached from Madain. They said, as we were about to prepare for the burial of Salman al-Farisi, we saw an Arab approaching from the desert who had a ammama, he had a niqab, and he covered his face. He approached, he moved everyone back, and he saw to the whole Amr himself. He did that and he left. When that news from Madain, when that letter from Madain reached Medina, that's when they believed Ali ibn Abi Talib. Salawat ala Muhammadin wa ali. Wa'ajjal faraj. Allow me to give you a few more examples, inshallah, before I come to Masaib. 4 of the Shia in the time of Ali ibn Musa, Imam Ali ibn Musa, come to Imam Ardh alayhi salatu wasalam. And they say to him, Yabna Rasulillah, you are in Khurasan, you're in Tus. Your son is in Medina. God forbid if something was to happen to you, who would see your affairs? Who would be the Imam after you, your kafan, dafan, Salatul Janaza, Ghusl? Because we have hadith, La yali al-wasi illa al-wasi, that the wasi, the Imam, is not given shroud and ghusl and janaz, Salatul Janaza, illa by Imam, misluhu, the one who's an Imam like him. We have hadith, too many. Usul Kafi is a whole bab, whole chapter in Al-Kafi. Imam Ali ibn Musa Radha, he asks them a question, and this is where I want to take you. He says, tell me, was Hussein ibn Ali an Imam or not? So of course, Imam Hussein was an Imam. 4 of them are there, and their names are in the books. I haven't memorized the names, but they're in the books, in the tradition. He said, of course, Mawla, he's an Imam. He says, then who would and who should see to the affairs of Hussein ibn Ali? They said his son Ali as-Sajjad, Imam as-Sajjad. So okay. So they said, who buried Imam al-Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam? Imam Sajjad taken prisoner. Where was he? They say, where was Imam Sajjad? Yabna Rasulillah, he was in the dungeons of Ibn Ziyad. In the prisons of dungeon, not even a... sometimes we say the word prison, it doesn't do justice to what kind of prisons the Imams were in. Today, prison is a luxury. Those days, it was a dungeon, underground, a hole, throw you inside and put a rock on top. The Imam was, where was the Imam? He was a prisoner of Bani Umayyah. He says, who buried him? Who buried Imam Hussein? Imam Sajjad. How? The tradition states, when Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam was buried on the 13th of Muharram, when Bani Asad came, there was a village around Karbala, the tribe of Bani Asad used to live there, they all came. And they started looking at the bodies of the shuhada, headless bodies. They said, we don't recognize them. Covered in blood and arrows and spears and, you name it. We cannot recognize body from body, young from old. As they were sitting there, baffled, they say we saw in a distance someone approaching from the direction of Kufa. Imam Ali ibn Musa Radha alayhi salam said that was Imam al-Sajjad. Though in the prison, the enemy thought he's in the prison. But with the karama, with Tay'y Ardh, with the miracle of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with the wilaya, at-takweeniyah that has been given to him, he does Tay'y Ardh and he transports and teleports himself into Karbala. He buries, especially Imam Hussein. They help Imam al-Sajjad with the Shahadat of Karbala. But Imam Hussein, he says, I'll bury Hussein myself, my father myself. Mawla Abbas, I'll bury myself. And you know what Imam Radha alayhi salam says? He says, look, Imam Sajjad was in prison, a prisoner of Bani Umayyah. If he can do that, then my son Imam Muhammad al-Jawad is not a prisoner. Then he can do it as well. And that's exactly what happened. You look through that latter part of the history of Imam Radha alayhi salam when he was poisoned. He says to his servant, close the door. Don't let anyone come inside. He says, the servant says, I closed the door and I sat at peace that no one's going to come in. All of a sudden, I saw a young boy appear out of nowhere. I stood up out of shock. I said, who are you? What are you here for? How did you get in? He says, I am Muhammad ibn Ali al-Jaw. I am the son of the Imam. My father has called me. He says, how did you come here? He says, my Lord brought me here. And he went and embraced his father. At the time of the death of the Imam before him appears. Imam Sajjad appeared. From the dungeons, the enemy thought he's in there. The enemy thought he's in prison. Now you go back to the definition of the ulama of kalam, mutakallimin, they say the soul becomes so powerful of the one who is the holder of Ismul A'zam, that the body now follows the soul doesn't follow the body. Subhanalladhi asra bi'abdihi laylan min al-masjid al-haram ila al-masjid al-aqsa, Mi'raj. Within a blink of an eye, the Prophet is taken from Masjid al-Haram ila al-Masjid al-Aqsa, the soul and the body. Not just Mi'raj, by the way, is not just the soul. It's not that Prophet was asleep and his soul was taken up. As some of the Sunni brothers, they have the belief Mi'raj was ruhani, ma'nawi, not jismani. But Ahlul Bayt say no, jismani and ruhani. Jism and ruh, body and soul. One of the ulama, he says something beautiful. He says, if you believe the Prophet's soul left the body, that's not Mi'raj, that's maut. Soul leave the body, that's death. The Quran says we took the Prophet from in the night from Masjid al-Aqsa, from Masjid al-Haram to Masjid al-Aqsa, from Hijaz, from Makkah to Palestine, from there to the Arsh. And all of that, the hadith says, when the Prophet did the Mi'raj, and the hadith of Mi'raj is probably one of the lengthiest and the tawil, amongst the tawil rawayat, is the hadith of Mi'raj. One of the lengthy, the Prophet speaks about the first sky, heaven, the second, and the samawat, he crossed them and what he saw, and the lengthiest travel of the Prophet. The hadith says about the Prophet was back, his bed was still hot. Is it making sense now? Mi'raj of the Prophet is an example of that. To go from one part, from one country to another, from one continent to another, from one point of a planet to another, at the speed of light, at the speed of, if not more. And why would this be difficult for the Muhammad who was made from light? أَوَّلُ مَا خَلَقَ اللَّهُ نُورِي. Allah created I am the first creation of God made from light. Now you know why the Prophet does not have a shadow. لَا يَكُونُ لَهُ ظِلٌّ. Because light doesn't have a shade. That's science. In fact, shade is the restriction of light. In physics, when light hits when light is blocked, it makes a shade. The Prophet the Imams didn't have a shade. Why? Because their maqam is maqam of nur. Their reality is light. Light doesn't have a shade. Recite salawat, please. Time is coming to an end. I say one point and then inshallah I leave it here. Of course, this is something that requires a lengthy discussion, requires many hours on it. Inshallah, the rest you can look into it, you can read into it. But at least from the Quranic point of view, no one can come and say it's not possible because it's in the Quran. And it's possible for someone who only carried one Ismullah, Ismul A'zam. It's possible for an Asif ibn Barkhiyah, for a Sulaiman, for a jinn who do not come close to the standard and maqam of Ali ibn Abi Talib. And so before the death of each Imam, the Imam before would appear, doesn't matter where he is in the world. In prison, out of prison. In Medina, in Baghdad. In Samarra, in Khurasan. The Imam would appear. And sometimes, in history you read that a For example, Imam Hassan al-Askari alayhi salatu wasalam was janazah was carried by the people and he was taken. And some of the Imams were preyed upon by the Khulafa, the tyrant caliphs. Yes, in Zahir, after that happened. But the first and foremost was the Imam who did that. So for example, when the Imam that we are mourning tonight, Imam Hassan al-Askari, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. When the Imam was martyred, his body lay there. The people gathered, the Shia gathered in the house in Samarra. It is said by the historians in the books of history in Bihar that the uncle of the 12th Imam by the name of Ja'far, he came forward and he wanted to lead the Salah. And he came forward, and as he was about to do Takbiratul Ihram for the Salat of Janazah, all of a sudden the tradition states that a curtain, a veil was pulled back, and a 5-year-old boy comes out. And he grabs him by the, his abba, his garments, and he says, "Uncle, only an Imam will lead the janazah of an Imam." This was the 12th Imam. This is your Imam. He comes out, "Uncle, you know very well this is my place." Some people were shocked, they'd never seen. Some people didn't even know that 11th Imam had a child because it was kept a secret, like Musa alayhi salam was kept a secret from the authorities of Egypt. He comes out and he says, "I will lead the salah," and he leads the salah. He sees to the kafan. Yes, after that, if the authorities got involved and the tyrants got involved and re-prayed a janazah, that's something else. But in the batin, that's zahir, apparent. But in the batin, in reality, the true namaz, janazah, salatul janazah of an Imam is done by the Imam. And as the Imam is poisoned, brothers, it's the last majlis of the ayyam of Aza. Next year, whoever lives, is blessed with that life, will have the honor of shedding tears for Aba Abdullah. Take it as the last majlis and shed your tears and present them to Fatimatul Zahra. The holy Imam is given a poison that makes him very thirsty. Aqid, who is a servant in the house of the Imam, he narrates this. He says, "I saw that the Imam began to deteriorate. His health began to go downhill." Poison really, it kills you internally. Swords kill you externally. Poison kills you internally. You may not see that blood. You may not see the wound, but only the person who has been poisoned feels the true intensity of the pain. And sometimes it becomes so unbearable, like Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba, that blood becomes to spill out of the mouth. Ajrukum ala Allah. Imam al-Askari Aqid says, "My Mawla, my master, Hazrat Imam Hassan al-Askari calls me. And he says, 'O Aqid, bring me a bowl of water. The thirst is killing me.' He says, I got a bowl of water and I ran to the Imam and I presented it to him in his lap. I gave it to him. It is said he carried it into his hands. But the poison was such that his hands began to shake. He did not even have the energy to now carry this bowl up to his lips and drink from it. He tried to carry it, but this bowl dropped out of his hands. He says to Aqid, "O Aqid, go into that room, the room next door. You will find a small child there in sajda. Go and tell him that his father calls him." Aqid says, "I went running into the other room. I saw there was a 4-year-old, 5-year-old boy in sajda. I said to him, Yabna Rasulillah, oh my master, your father calls you." Imam, this is who? This is Imam al-Mahdi, Aba Salih. This is the 12th Imam, Ya Shia. O Mu'mineen, this Imam comes out, this 5-year-old boy, and he comes running to his father. You know what his father says to him? He says, "Oh my child, oh my son, feed me some water. Give me a few sips of water." Imam al-Zaman, with his own hands, he lifts this bowl and he gives his father a sip of water, after which he embraces his father. He hugs his father, and Imam al-Askari alayhi salam embraces him. In the last final moments, before Imam Hassan al-Askari closes his eyes forever, Imam al-Mahdi was on the chest of Imam al-Askari. You remember in Medina, Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam, when he was breathing his final breath and the poison was killing him and the blood was coming out of his mouth, you know what he says? He says, bring me my young boy Qasim. Where is my son Qasim? Qasim is brought and he hugs his father. And Imam Hassan embraces him and he cries. But when his mother tries to remove him, so she does not want to cause any harm to Imam al-Hassan, he says, Farwa, leave him. For when he is on my chest, I feel a sense of relief and sukoon. You know, when Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rada was poisoned in Khurasan, in Gharib-e-Tus, when he was poisoned, you know who was on his final moments on his chest? His son Muhammad al-Taqi al-Jawad. Ajrakum ala Allah, when Imam al-Sajjad in his final moments was poisoned, Imam Baqir was embracing his father. In other words, every son was embracing his father. But let us go to Karbala. In the final moments of Aba Abdullah, who was sitting on the chest of Aba Abdullah. Ajrakum ala Allah. This is why la yawm ka yawmika ya Aba Abdullah. It is true Hassan al-Askari was poisoned. It is true Hassan al-Askari is a shaheed. But oh Mawla, in your last moments you were given water by your son Imam al-Zaman. But oh Shia, Imam Aba Abdullah al-Hussein, when Imam al-Sajjad, when he comes with Tay'y Ardh, when he comes to Karbala, he buries him. With his finger he writes on the grave, Hada Qabrul Hussein. This is the grave of Hussein who was killed Atshana, who was killed thirsty. Ajrukum ala Allah. Samarra, on a day like this, you know what happened in Samarra? The shops were closed, the roads were blocked, the people flocked out into the streets, and the janazah of Hassan al-Askari is lifted. Now Imam al-Zaman is not there because he had to go into Ghaiba, but he saw from a distance that his body, the father of his body, is lifted. The city is in standstill. The people have come out and they lifted the body of Imam Hassan al-Askari. And perhaps it gave some sukoon to Imam al-Zaman. But you know what Imam Sajjad saw on the day of Ashura? When he lifted the curtain of the khayma, may no son see this. When he lifted the curtain of the khayma and he looks towards the Qatlgah, the Maqtal, what does Imam Sajjad see? He sees shimmer in a distance. He sees in one hand he is carrying a dagger which is stained in blood. In the other hand he is carrying the head of Aba Abdullah. Ajrakum ala Allah. As if this wasn't enough. Imam, oh Mawla Imam Hassan al-Askari, I leave you with this. On your final moments, your son put his head on your chest. But Sham-e Ghariban, it was the body of Hussein and the hooves of the horses. When Imam Sajjad asked Bibi Zainab, or Aunt Zainab, what is that noise of the breaking of wood and stick? What is that cracking of the glass? She says, oh my son Sajjad, this is not the breaking of any glass or any wood. This is the crushing of the ribs of Aba Abdullah. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. We pray to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, oh Allah, accept this azadari from us. Ya Rabbal Alameen, we mourned Aba Abdullah al-Hussein 2 months and 8 days. Oh Allah, accept each and every tear that we shed for the love of Aba Abdullah. Oh Allah, present these tears to Fatimatul Zahra so that she make intercession for us, make shafa'ah for us. Ya Rabbal Alameen, we pray to you, bihaqqi Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad, give shifa ajla and kamila to anyone who is mareed in this community. Ya Rabbal Alameen, raise the ranks of all of our marhumeen, ulama, shuhada, fuqaha. Ya Rabbal Alameen, we pray to you in this year and every year, grant us with the benefit of the ziyarah of Aba Abdullah. And if we die, grant us with the shafa'at of Aba Abdullah and his mother Fatimatul Zahra, Matam Hussain. Ya Hussain.
سورہ کہف سناتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے، سورہ کہف سناتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے، سورہ کہف سناتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے، سورہ کہف سناتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے، سورہ کہف سناتا ہے خون آنکھوں سے بہاتا ہے، خون آنکھوں سے بہاتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے، سورہ کہف سناتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے، سورہ کہف سناتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے، سورہ کہف سناتا چلتے چلتے جو سکینہ کہیں گر جاتی ہے، چلتے چلتے جو سکینہ کہیں گر جاتی ہے، خود کو نیزے سے گراتا ہے، خود کو نیزے سے گراتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے، سورہ کہف یہ سر کس کا ہے، سورہ کہف یہ سر کس کا ہے، سورہ کہف جس طرف جاتا ہے بازار میں سر اکبر کا، جس طرف جاتا ہے بازار میں سر اکبر کا، اس طرف دیکھتا جاتا ہے، اس طرف دیکھتا جاتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے، سورہ کہف سناتا ہے کس کا ہے، سورہ کہف جب بھی داخل کسی بازار میں ہوتے ہیں حرم، جب بھی داخل کسی بازار میں ہوتے ہیں حرم، پہلا پتھر یہی کھاتا ہے، پہلا پتھر یہی کھاتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے، سورہ کہف سناتا ہے سناتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے، سورہ کہف رات ہوتی ہے تو معصوم سی ایک بچی کو، رات ہوتی ہے تو معصوم سی ایک بچی کو، لوری نیزے سے سناتا ہے، لوری نیزے سے سناتا ہے، یہ سر کس کا ہے، سورہ کہف سناتا ہے، یہ سر کس کا ہے، سورہ کہف، یہ سر کس کا ہے، سورہ کہف، پڑھ کے قرآن کی آیات سر زینب سے، پڑھ کے قرآن کی آیات سر زینب سے، دھیان لوگوں کا ہٹاتا ہے، دھیان لوگوں کا ہٹاتا ہے، یہ سر کس کا ہے، سورہ کہف سناتا ہے، یہ سر کس کا ہے، سورہ کہف، یہ سر کس کا ہے، سورہ کہف سناتا ہے، یہ سر کس کا ہے، صلو علی محمد و آل محمد۔
السلام عليك يا سيدي يا مولاي يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا سيدي يا نبي الله، يا محمد يا حبيب الله، وعلى زوجتك الوفية الغراء خديجة الكبرى أم المؤمنين والمؤمنات، وعلى بذأة المظلومة الصديقة الطاهرة فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، وعلى أخيك ووليك ووصيك وخليفتك من بعدك علي أمير المؤمنين، وأبنيك الإمامين الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة أجمعين، وعلى 9 المعصومين من ذرية الحسين، علي السجاد ومحمد الباقر وجعفر الصادق وموسى الكاظم وعلي الرضا ومحمد الجواد وعلي الهادي والحسن العسكري. السلام عليك يا مولاي يا صاحب الزمان، أجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك، والسلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته.
اللهم عليك وجه حسن صلواتك عليه ولا فافي هادة ساتي وتكليس وليا وحافظا وقايدا وناصرا ليلا ومعينها حتى كجزله ترى وها فيها